Hey, it's your boy Big Keith, man, one half of the most notorious entertaining duo live right now. And it's Renegade Radio, iPower 92.1. Right now we have on the line Pierre Medor. Welcome to the show, homie.
Yo, what's good?
Yo, first of all, man, thank you for taking time out. I know you're busy.
Oh, man, thank you. Thank you.
And, for talking to us here. For those people here in Central Virginia who don't know who Pierre Medor is, they don't really know too much about it. They might be familiar with your work and they're familiar with your songs and things of that nature, but they're not really familiar with the name. Kind of give people a brief history, here in Virginia and online, exactly, who you are and what it is that you do.
Oh, not a problem at all. I mean, my brief history is I started out as a producer with Jagged Edge. I produced on their third album, Jagged Little Thrill, was my first placement. After that, I went on to work with Belle Biv DeVoe, Patti LaBelle. I had a hit song with Marcus Houston called All Because of You, as well as a song with B5 named You Got Me. And went on to work with a host of other people, Usher, in recent months, Usher, Flo Rida, Rick Ross. So it's been an incredible journey thus far, but, I've definitely put my time in. I've been doing this for 12 years, so.
You've been doing this now for over a decade, and obviously the climate of music and the sales have changed.
Drastically.
As a producer-songwriter, how has that affected you, and what changes did you have to adjust to, going from the sales from, 2002 to now to 2012?
Well, to be honest, sales is something that's so elusive. You can't really control that. I think that's a byproduct of a lot of different factors. But one good thing about this climate is that you have to genuinely be talented to survive in this climate of the industry. And so, in that sense, I feel a bit more resolute and confident, about my future, because that's one thing that I can definitely say. God has blessed me with an amazing talent and ability to, write, and not only write it, but go and produce it, and just do everything within the studio. That's a blessing to be able to go in and have that level of creative control. You know,
when you're not working, I know you work a lot, but when you're not working, what are some of the things you do?
Working? I enjoy playing basketball, watching movies, regular stuff, regular guy stuff. Just hanging out, playing video games.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Now, you've moved around a little bit. You've worked out of L.A., you worked out of Atlanta, you worked out of Miami. What's the difference between, working in those cities?
I would say the main thing is just the difference in perhaps the approach. And you know what? Really, I can't even say that, because a lot of writers from Atlanta actually relocated to L.A. And you'll find that, whenever there's a hot city, a lot of writers and producers will migrate to that city to just be wherever the new hot energy is, and I'm blessed to be, now stationed in Miami, and this is like such a burgeoning place. There's always been a lot of talent here, but there's a lot of talent actually, relocating here. L.A. was a great experience. L.A. was kind of like the next step after Atlanta for me, and Atlanta was that was home base. That's where it all began, and it was just a great experience there.
You've worked with a lot of people, man. Who are some of the most memorable artists that you've worked with?
Most memorable artists that I've worked with.
Why?
Okay, most memorable artists that I've worked with has to be Usher. That was the most memorable, because he is by far the best vocalist that I've ever worked with in the studio.
Really? Okay.
Absolutely. Usher is, just a consummate professional, and he's really a perfectionist and really pushes everyone around him to really dig deep creatively. So that him and I would have to say Brandy as well. That was another highlight in my career to have worked with her. She has a new album getting ready to drop. I was blessed to be a part of 2 records on there and co-producing alongside Rico Love. So definitely those 2.
All right. For people listening, and they are aspiring songwriters.
Yeah.
Do you have to know how to sing to be a songwriter?
I think that some singing ability is necessary, definitely.
Okay.
Definitely lends itself to to being a great songwriter. No, you don't have to know how to sing to be a songwriter. You can, Anybody can write songs, but it's about if you want to write them professionally. So, you know,
Okay.
That's the crux of that matter, you know.
Your first big check that you got, what did you do with your first big chunk of change?
My first big check came from the album that I was on, my very first placement, actually. And the first thing I did is I went and reinvested in myself. I bought a bunch of studio equipment. I bought my own studio equipment. At the time, the people I had moved down with had invested in me, and they bought me a bunch of equipment. But when I got my first check, I went and purchased my own equipment.
What's some of your favorite gear to use when you're making your music?
These days, the most convenient thing that I have is a program called Logic. That's what I record. I do all of my music programming in Logic, and then I'm recording in Pro Tools. I mean, that's pretty much the industry standard in the way of Pro Tools, you know. But Logic is my tool of choice when it comes to creating music compositions.
Now, what are some of your favorite VSTs inside of Logic?
Some of my favorite VSTs, Omnisphere, I'd have to say, is like a top one. Omnisphere for sure.
What's the biggest misconception that aspiring artists, producers, and songwriters don't know, and that they realize, you know, real quick as soon as they get in? You know, one of the biggest misconceptions that
one of the biggest misconceptions is that every song you write is a hit, you know. And the thing is, when you're creative, you're so intertwined and married to your craft that, you know, you're really connected with every work emotionally. And doing it professionally and on the level that I've been doing it, you quickly learn how to have a sober opinion about your music, you know what I mean, and really, really dissect, and it makes you go and study your craft that much more.
Wow.
You know, because for every 10 songs you write, maybe one of them will be the one that someone is willing to go ahead and cut or put out, you know, and then for every 100 songs, one of them might be a hit, you know. So it's a numbers game, but you start to dwindle the chances the more dedicated you are to your craft and the more aware you are of what it takes to create a hit record.
Now, have you ever done a song for someone and then it's done, it's packaged, and, you know, it's released and everything, and then later on down the line you listen to it? Do you ever critique your own music and say, I could have did this better, or I could have did that better? Or
Absolutely. I mean, I cringe every time I listen to my first few placements because, I mean, my sound selection was horrible. You know, the drum sounds were not that great. You know, the sound, you know, everything was just, you know, just figuring it out back then.
Yeah.
But, I obviously, you know, as of recently, though, I think because the creative process is so exhaustive that when I do go back and listen to the records, I don't have that sense of, I would have changed this. I put everything into making sure that it's right the first time, and I try to be a marksman with my craft to make sure that I can go back to it 10 years later and really be pleased with the work I've done.
And I talk a little bit about the difference between a producer and a beat maker.
A beat maker is someone who understands sonics, understands what sounds to choose, you know. A producer is one who understands how to oversee the completion of a record. You know, this could be someone who is a musician, he could be a beat maker, but primarily a producer is the person responsible for the delivering of the record to the label. You know, so a lot of people have that misconception that, you know, if you did the beat, that alone makes you a producer. And, you know, you're a producer in the sense that you produce the music, you know, but producing is about the record in totality. Now,
you linked up with Division One. That's Rico Love as well, right?
Yes, sir.
Now, how did you link up with Rico Love?
Rico Love is a longtime friend of mine. We actually met back in 2002 while we were both kind of under the mentoring of Jagged Edge, and we had an instant chemistry. Him and my other partner, Dwayne, we all got together and we made like a gang of records when we first met, and ever since then it's been that same chemistry. And so, you know, as his star ascended, he reached out for me and gave me actually another shot to really produce on a major level. And, you know, he's a major component of all the projects that I'm a part of right now. So, yeah, shout out to Rico Love.
If you're just now tuning in inside Power 92.1, and we're talking to Pierre Medor. Pierre, what are some of the things that you would like to see change in the music industry? That some things that you may not be so happy about?
I think the main thing that I'd like to see change is just a lot. I'd like to see a lot more talent exposed, you know, like truly talented people get a genuine shot. And I know there's multiple components to that, because as an artist, you have to really put the work in necessary so that you can get the exposure you need. It's not enough to just be talented, but I would like to see, that's something that's close to my heart, is to see talented people get a genuine shot and really be heard by the world. There's a lot of talented people out here that haven't been heard yet.
Well, now, what do you have coming new? Like, what can we expect for you in this fourth quarter and early 2013?
New things we have coming out, definitely that Brandy project. Sean Paul is releasing pretty soon. We got a couple records that we did with Plies as well. And then there's a few other things, a few other missiles,
Okay. Now, is there anything that you've ever done that you regretted? Like, have you ever, I asked DJ Khaled this last week.
Mm-hmm.
I asked him, what, have you ever, wasted money or spent some money where it's like, man, I shouldn't have done that?
Absolutely. And I think any seasoned veteran is going to have that story. My first publishing deal was my first time seeing a large sum of money, like six-figure plus.
Wow.
And so when I got that money, I didn't know how to act. That's my first time ever seeing that size of money. And, it makes you a little bit more bolder than you would normally be. You know what I mean? And so you go, you don't listen to anyone. Yeah, you're buying watches, you're buying, all of the things you don't need.
Okay.
And then you realize how quickly money can go. It definitely helps to broaden your perspective and mature you really quickly.
For aspiring, songwriters and especially aspiring producers that are on the outside and trying to get in, how do you crack that door open if you don't know anybody, but you're trying to get in on the inside? And the music industry is very small, especially the urban side.
This is a game changer right here. Okay. The key to really getting in the game, I would say by and large it's really about the relationships you have. So first and foremost, you want to put yourself in a position to where you can be in the same surrounding as people who are already doing it on the level that you'd like to do it. And perhaps that means interning for these people. Perhaps that means, finding a way to ascribe some value to someone else's situation so that you can have an opportunity to have that audience with them and let them hear where you're at. But if you don't, even before you get that, what I would suggest to aspiring songwriters and producers is really study your craft. Study the terrain of where you would like to be. Like if you're saying you want to be a top 10 songwriter, then you should know what's on the top 10 of the charts. You should know and understand what makes those songs work. Why do they work? You know what I mean? And really, really just be diligent about your craft, because I think that's the first thing you notice. Even when you meet an upcoming producer, you can tell a lot about them based on what they're letting you hear. A lot of information is being exchanged just in that auditory experience. Like you can tell if they've been studying,
Mm-hmm.
So that's the main thing. Study your craft, and not only study your craft, but study the business as well, so you don't get bamboozled in some type of crazy deal. Because one thing that happens with talented people is they are extremely talented, but not business savvy.
Mm-hmm.
So if you can, associate yourself with someone who knows the business if you don't know it, and make sure you're diligent about your craft.
You know what? Speaking of which, talk a little bit about how important the business side of it is.
The business side is really everything. There are more successful people who understand the business side who may, I always say talent is only 10% of the pie necessary to be successful in the business. So it's great when you have it, right? But there's a lot of people that have the other 90% hitting on all four cylinders,
Yeah.
And they end up encountering a lot more success than the people who are a full vested 10% talented,
Right.
That information consists of a lot of things, but that's part of your due diligence as a producer or a songwriter, is to go out and seek that knowledge. There's books in the library about that. There's entertainment attorneys out here who, maybe it may be an investment of, you paying an attorney for an hour of their time to just ask them different questions and glean that wisdom and that knowledge. But, either way, it always comes back to the aspiring writer or producer to take the time out to invest in themselves and inform yourselves. Knowledge is power.
Wow, that's good stuff, man. You dropped a nugget here. You said find a way to become an asset and become valuable to someone. How does someone do that?
Really, assessing what you have, assessing your abilities beyond just your talents. There are things that we're good at sometimes even unbeknownst to us. It's just things that we just do naturally, you know, figuring out. Sometimes you may be someone who's really resourceful. You know, maybe you're someone who you have, like for me, I'm OCD. I'm like cleaning up stuff all the time. You know, if I was ever in a bind or something, or I needed to help someone, one thing they wouldn't have is a dirty office, or, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
A dirty car. I'd make sure their car is clean, make sure it's gassed up, you know, if I was in that position, you know. So things like that, just basic things. Okay. You know, I think a lot of times people overlook the fact that, you know, creative people have daily things they have to do as well. So if you can, you know, add some value to their life by making those things more convenient and allow them to be more creative, they may be more willing to share with you what it is that allows them to be exceptionally creative, you know?
Wow. That's awesome, man. Have you ever heard a record where you wish that you, like, man, that's dope. I wish I would have done that.
Absolutely. I wish I would have done, and this wasn't really a single from her album, but I wish I would have done When You Touch Me from Brandy's album.
Okay.
Full Moon album. That's like the best song ever to me.
Yeah. I like Full Moon. Full Moon was probably one of my favorites.
Classic.
Man, she's good. She's good. Man, we could talk all night long, man. You're definitely a class act, man. Listen, thank you so much for taking your time out to join us here on Renegade Radio. Real quick, give me your Twitter.
Absolutely. Follow me at Twitter at Pierre Medor, PIERREMEDOR.
There it is. Pierre Medor, man. Thank you so much, man. It's iPowerRichmond.com.